Are you a divorced dad and afraid that your child won't hit their creative potential? If so, follow me. Welcome to another special edition of Ask Andy Anything, Ask Andy Anything interviews. And today I'm interviewing my son, Asher, my oldest son. He's written 3 series and 7 different books within those series. The main reason I wanted to bring him on, not just because he's written all these books, but for divorced dads that are looking for ways in which they can encourage their children's creativity. In past videos, I've shown you how I've done videos with my kids and some things like that, which you can take a look at later if you'd like. I wanted to talk to Asher about his motivation, what made him decide to get into writing, and what he's working on currently. Asher, why don't you tell me what got you into writing in the first place?
I guess it was a mixture of things, really. From one thing is that there's already been a couple people in our family that have been like authors, in my grandfather and uncle, and even great grandma. And another thing is, I've been big into books back since like 5th grade, and I'm a college student now, so I'm still reading though. During high school, I definitely lost touch with it until senior year, where I found this magnificent thing called the anime industry, where it's a lot of foreign like cartoons that have a lot of really cool ideas I'd never really seen before, and it inspired me to get back to writing. Cause I stopped after 7th grade, where I was working on something, and I started whipping up some more. But then I'd always come up with a newer idea, and then start with something else that I got inspired with. So I've written a couple different things that are kind of all over the place. Most of it's like a fantasy thing, just because I'm really into that. One of the big inspirations for like at least going down this route is like the cool art and illustrations that they do, where they come from Japan, which is a lot different than what you see for stuff that's illustrated or made in like America, as in, I don't know, real life, like the CGI or just like the art style. It's very, very different. I really like it. So that's why I wanted to do a self-publishing route where I could get someone who's adequate at doing this kind of art style. I really like to have these kind of like visual indicators for the reader. It's not something I thought about when I was younger, but after seeing it, I'm like, yeah, most things I want to do, I want to have it with all of it, like, so they can imagine how I imagine this character. And that's a really big part of why I liked reading all these novels that came from Japan that have been translated and like localized for English readers. So it's been a inspiration for me to make my own version of that and try to get out with some of the other people that have already done it on like places like Amazon and like or indie publishers, stuff like that. Back in like 4th, 5th grade, I kind of fell in love with the series by Rick Riordan and Percy Jackson stuff that got me really big into mythology and stuff in school. Like during COVID, I read like 30 different books, and I had time to pick up a couple of my grandfather's books and read it. And I was already writing a bit then, but I started talking to him a lot about it, trying to get advice as well as reading more to try to improve my own writing style.
What was the best advice that you got from your grandfather?
Make sure you feel some of yourself and the characters, right? Establish a connection. And if you're not really feel like your heart's into it, or like there's not some of you, then it probably won't connect with other people if it doesn't like connect with you. Most of the time when I do write it, at least for like the main cast, I do stuff that I really like, either some kind of trope that goes with something I'm a fan of, or something that like either likes, dislikes, or similarities I put that I have in myself, put it into my characters. So then that, there's like an aspect of me. And I also base them off of like real life people or people that I've met, that so there's more like a realistic aspect to it, that so it's not just only me, only people like me would connect with that. That's my main goal, is just to make them more like realistic, and it takes realistic things to help with that.
Let's talk about a book that you're having illustrated right now that you're about to get published. Tell me about that one. What's that about?
That one's called River Lethe, and if you know what the River Lethe is, it's one of the rivers in the underworld that if someone falls in, they lose their memory. They're like a clean slate. It's the main character. Her name's Leith. She is like amnesia, and it's like a fantasy setting, but fairy tale meets European Middle Ages kind of thing, where really anything like besides like modern technology goes into it. Pretty much every chapter is just her going to like a new village or country where they either worship some sort of god from any pantheon. Really, it could be Chinese, Greek, Roman, H.P. Lovecraftian. any of those, and interacts with people there and affects her along the way and slowly changes her. And while she also tries to discover more about her past and who she actually is, and also what happened to the eye she's been missing the whole time. That's why she has an eye patch on it. I got inspired from this one book I read from Japan about about this witch girl called Wandering Witch Elena that travels around to different places, and it gave a kind of like Brothers Grimm fairy tale vibe where it felt like pretty warm and like fuzzy to read, but also it could be dark and cruel at times. And I really like that kind of aspect. And I hadn't written a female main character before, so I wanted to experiment with that, but also have aspects of myself in her, but also that stuff like if I was a girl, then that's what I would be like. It felt really easy to write just because I would never have to have any writer's block or anything, so I could just do a new story. And a lot of the stories I took from were from either poems or stuff I always wanted to write about in my other things, but I couldn't find a good spot to put them in. Because there's about almost like any situation I could probably plop her in and see how she deals with it, or the people that are around her that she's affected or have affected her. I don't know how I want to end it, but just every new experience and invite something new and change, and that's what I want to go for. So like just show the world in many different colors and different kind of characters that can relate with other people, and also intrigue them or spike excitement.
Can you read me a paragraph from your book?
Yeah, sure. Well, this is a chapter that's kind of like halfway through the story, but it's a flashback for the protagonist. Her name's Leith, where she first wakes up with no memory, and how her journey starts, I guess you could say. I surveyed where I was. Okay, where was I? Who was I? And my eye. Ugh, it hurts. It hurts! I tried to make contact with the excruciating pain in my left eye, but I couldn't. My hands would not allow it. They were bound by chains that were linked to the wall behind me. My legs were in a similar position, except bound to the ground instead. The place I was in was pure alabaster, except for my shackles and myself, who was only scantily covered in a brown sheet that did next to nothing to protect me from the creeping chill that had been slowly crawling up my body. I couldn't even feel my legs anymore. I struggled with all my might, but all I could do was swing around my body in the air. When I did just that, I came face to face with a bearded man who was chained behind me, his deep-sea blue eyes locked with the one eye I could see out of. Well, this isn't getting anywhere. I looked down at them on the man's body, which only had underwear. He was in even worse shape than I when it came to combating the cold. But I must say, his body is pretty, well built. His massive muscles were the size of my head, and his six-pack looked just as tough as armor, maybe even tougher, with the way it shined despite there being no sun. I was a bit surprised he couldn't tear through these chains with ease with that monstrous form. Perhaps there was more to these chains than I thought. I decided to make the first move. Do you know where we are? My voice felt like it was full of sandpaper. Some water would be nice, but I shouldn't expect it. For all I knew, I could be a dangerous criminal that was on death row. Perhaps this was my fate? My destiny? How unsettling. Hey, want to hear something? My thoughts were interrupted by the strong man. He had spoken to me with a defiant look in his eyes. He clearly had something I would want to hear. I slowly nodded with an expression of pain from the chains. What if I could get us out of here? Well, that would be great. Consider it done, then. Call it a favor. Don't expect me to owe you, though. I don't even know why I'm here. He shot me the wild grin of a voracious beast. I'm in the same boat, but that doesn't matter. I know I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm sure a pretty girl like you didn't do shit either. I'm not the kind to be easily flattered, you know. I stammered. Sure, whatever. Hey, watch this. His shoulders bulged up, the rest of his arms soon following to nearly double his size. What strength! The bracer stood no chance against his imposing frame. His other arm and legs also increased in size, easily destroying the chains that bound him. He looked down at me with a mix of delight and interest. I wonder if you will have what it takes to survive what comes next.
All right, thank you. Well, I have a couple questions. What made you decide to write a female character in the first place?
Well, the main reason was there's this book series that I talked about earlier. It's called Wandering Witch, The Journey of Elena. It's one that came from Japan about witch girl travels. Every place is like different she goes to. And I thought that concept was really cool. And I'd never written a female character before, so I thought it'd be fun to do as well. I like the challenge of trying something new. And I could it was a little hard to think of clothes for a different clothes, especially when I lack that experience. So that's what I had to do some research into. But besides that, I thought it was pretty fun to make her have some like cool aspects. What I see a lot in like shows, even American or like foreign, is that for female protagonists or like side character or like the heroines, they don't have like that much personality to them. They make them very like feminine, like a damsel in distress kind of thing, or like ones that like always are there to support the main character. And what I really liked about the series of Leith is that she had both, I'd say, a masculine and a feminine side where she one thing she was very into money, like just trying to survive, and that she would consider she wouldn't just help people just to help people. She'd have to be something in for. And I liked stuff like that where you'd say, oh yeah, normally like the nice person or like the dainty frail girl, she would always be the one to help someone like that. When you give more like, let's say, humanity to characters like that, I think it makes it a lot more real. And then so I think both the males and females should have both aspects in them. And where she is more like assertive, just like my character, she definitely like needs like an incentive to do something. When others that she's not very trusting of people and also easily like mocks people in her mind.
Why doesn't she trust people?
There's stuff she's learned on her way, like when the series starts, she already does some like sketchy deals with people just because she knows the darker side of humanity from her past experiences about the people she's dealt with. So you can say that like throughout her journey so far, just on the start, she's already been sort of molded into a specific way. But as she progresses and meets more people, you can say that either removing layers but also adding new ones to it. Not only open-minded but more open her heart to people, where she can have friends, because she's always been alone except for her companion, which is a little wolf that she rides on. And the only person that cared for her when she first started out was not even human. It was a big golem guy. It was like a grandpa father figure to her. So for actual humans, especially like a lot of them, the males she's done with the past, she doesn't really trust them. And that's why most people she meets on like are like female characters. It's a big, mostly female cast. Every now and then there's like bigger parties that need to be formed or special people that she meets. One thing I like to do is with the people that the place she goes to is she likes to hear the stories of the people of what happened to why has this place been destroyed or what happened to the people here or how'd they get into this situation, and then figure out what to do after that, either to help the people or to move on with what she's doing or to see what she can get out of it, similar to what the protagonist from The Wandering Witch does. I like that aspect of her.
How is she different from the protagonist in The Wandering Witch?
Well, I'd say she's a little more cold at times, but also can be more emotional than her, because that's the one thing about the girl Elena is that she doesn't. I've only seen her like cry a few times. For my character, she started out mostly as like a lot colder, but over time with the relationship she's made, she's been able to give the warmth that one particular character gave to her to other people, even if they were at odds at first. And she's also come to rely on people a lot more, which is something, say, Elena, who always goes by herself, would never really do, unless she just happens to run into them again. My character at least plans to journey with more people, or at least one other person is what I plan to do. But they're both mostly loners, but at least having like a companion like the wolf she rides is something to make it a little less uneventful, even as like she's changed along the people she meets along the way. It's a lot of characteristic things.
So the other book that you're talking about, was that written by a male or a female?
It was written by a male, which I was pretty surprised because, yeah, it's pretty much all. I mean, the males in it don't really have names. It's all the female cast of the people she meets. Pretty distinct personality. Some are borderline lesbian for the main character as well. I mean, I think it's a funny aspect. I have played with that a little bit. If I do have the male characters, do make sure to give them names and make some of them stand out. And I've introduced a couple from ancient mythology that I've been a big fan of. For his books, I wanted to see more like prominent male characters, or just ones that like had more personality to them, because a lot of the guys are just kind of stereotypical, but also like it's just they're just like stupid, like meatheads most of the time. Some of them are a little more than that, but I want to, with the males I do have more depth.
How much of yourself is in this character or any of the characters in your book?
I would say, I mean, especially my curiosity, it's like I was always seeing something plan out, not leaving before it's finished. I'm someone that likes to finish stuff, and she is someone that also likes to see things through as long as she gets involved. Like it's kind of like the sunk costs fallacy. If you put your time into it, you want to either keep doing it or make sure you get your worth out of it, which is like what she does with some of the people she's been with, that people ask her to help and ends up helping them, or gets caught up in something. or ends up being the number one follower for an ancient cult and a deity, normal things like that. For the most part, is like the curiosity, and also some of the comebacks or stuff. I would say myself, kind of like stupid debates it have. The comedy is something I always liked about. So I try to, even though she is seeing some shit, that I wanted to give her a comedy side, especially internally when she's remarking about something.